The Dubai real estate market has been the #1 real estate market in the world by some measures. It is up from the lows, supposedly 225% over the last year. It is up, according to one of the major organizations, 50%. It makes it the top appreciated market over the last year. And so some people may be asking, should you invest? And I've heard different people from around the space saying, hey, why Dubai real estate is set to go up, and various different people are promoting, etc. Now, there are lots of reasons why you may want to buy real estate in UAE. You can get a golden visa, that's pretty fantastic. Maybe you want to live there anyway, and so as a result, you need a place to stay, perfectly great. Maybe you're saying, well, you know what? I'm okay with it because I'm diversifying my portfolio. Maybe you're okay with the cash flow that you're going to get off the investment. There's lots of different reasons. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about, from my perspective, what is going on in the macro with the Dubai real estate market over the next 5 years or so, and what that means for the trajectory. So we're going to dive into some of the numbers of what is going on recently, what is coming up over the next few years, and what that likely means for both short-term prices and longer-term prices. So let's dive in. Before we do, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification bell. Thank you for being here. Welcome. I am Michael from Offshore Citizen. We are some of the foremost international relocation and international tax specialists, and we will help you with figuring out what the best solution is for you in terms of relocation, in terms of your company, in terms of optimizing your taxes, in terms of setting up banking and your companies, et cetera, and then help you with implementing those strategies as well as maintaining them. So if you're interested in any of that, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, there's a link in the description below, or send a message through offshorecitizen.net. All right, so let me give you kind of some quick stats here. Dubai has about 3.5 million people, give or take. There's a large tourist population, of course, that comes in each year, and they're aiming to increase that pretty dramatically. There are around 760,000 dwellings within Dubai. So, you can kind of do the math. It's about 4 people per dwelling, approximately. They are adding about 1.5% of the population in kind of terms of annual growth. So, around 50-ish thousand people per year. Now, of course, there's fluctuation in there. When you had the war in Ukraine, lots of people came to UAE during COVID, kind of lots of people came into UAE. But if you look at kind of a long-term population graph, you're going to see it's pretty consistently in and around that range in terms of the number of people who are coming. Maybe you get to 2%, maybe you get, whatever, but somewhere along those numbers, all right? They are adding, or have been adding the last little bit, around 30 to 40,000 places per year. Okay, that's kind of the current trajectory of places. Now, there was some delays, of course, during COVID, 2020, 2021, et cetera. The market seemed to kind of bottom in 2020, and I mentioned prices have gone up a lot since then. To give some idea in different areas, and of course there's different price points, and some areas are more than others, but I followed the ultra luxury segment pretty closely for quite a few years. And when I started following it, the top most expensive properties that were coming up onto the market, let's say if we're just talking about like penthouses, for example, were like around 70 million, 80 million dirhams. Okay, so in around 20 million US dollars. That's like kind of the top. Well, recently they just had the most expensive ever sale in Dubai, $140 million in the penthouse of this new building near Burj Al Arab. 140 million US dollars. It's quite a lot of money for pretty much any market. In addition to this, we have the Bugatti Tower that was recently announced. It has this sky mansion thing. It's 44,000 square feet, has 20 car garage. You have an elevator for your Bugatti. It's got, nice pool on the rooftop that is yours. It's like actually your rooftop. It's a pretty insane unit, but they're listing it for 750 million dirhams. In and around, we'll just estimate 200 million US dollars. If you go and you look, you can see Omniat is building 3 new projects they can think of. A couple at sort of near the base of the Palm, one near the new Omniat Dorchester Collection in Business Bay, which was already like one of the top properties, and it's quite delayed, about a year and a half or so delayed on their opening, but just chocked full of high-end properties. We're talking properties that are selling, or listed for at least, in excess of, in some cases, just 200 million dirhams. You have the penthouse at one and only Zabil. Again, over 100 million dirhams. You had Atlantis the Royal, which was I think 150 million. You have a new Ritz-Carlton going in Dubai Creek. There are 13 sort of mansions there. Again, similar price point. There's Como residences on the bottom. Again, similar, like just an insane amount of inventory at a level that is pretty unprecedented historically in Dubai. Okay, so this just kind of tells you something about what is coming onto the market. It has been fairly expensive, I would say, in terms of regular people's cost of living in Dubai. I had a manager of one of my companies moved here, and for him to go and get a one-bedroom place in, it was a reasonable location, and it was sort of like a medium-level building in, sort of downtown Business Bay area, was like $2,500 US, which if I compare it to what you can get in a lot of places in US and Canada and stuff like that, I mean, you can typically get more for less. So definitely that was, I would say, expensive, and he shopped around a bunch to find what it was that he was getting. So already that's like high. And people could ask, okay, well, like what's going on with the UAE market? Now it's on a per square footage basis, what you actually get, not totally ridiculous. I mean, definitely not as expensive as London, not as expensive as Hong Kong, Monaco. It's sort of like what you would expect in sort of a modern first world city that was not, New York or San Francisco or one of these places, okay? Not insanely high, but still pretty high relative to, I think, what a lot of people would like for their quality of life, etc. Okay, so that's kind of a tapestry for people who are not familiar with the market. What we see in UAE is an environment that is low on leverage. So there's not a lot of mortgages relative to the total market size compared to what you would get in, Australia, UK, Ireland. I mean, a bunch of kind of the developed world, let's call it, or the modern, the Western world, however you want to characterize it. So lack of debt, lack of mortgages. Generally, the loan to value on those properties are going to be lower. It's difficult to get approved for anything under 70 to 80% LTV. So that's a factor in the market, okay? However, there is a massive off-plan market in UAE. It's a huge, huge thing that they go and they sell these properties prior to, maybe 3 years before they're actually going to be constructed. And in this space, you're typically putting a down payment, maybe 10%, maybe 20%, various payments, and usually, 50+% is payable at the end, sometimes even post handover of the property. Okay, and so in that sense, there's an enormous amount of leverage to the extent that there are a bunch of properties under construction. And this actually represents a pretty good opportunity to buy properties. I have one of my business partners in another company did very well, just kind of he scoped out the building that he really wanted, and he just, instead of buying off plan, he knew there'd probably be some person who would be in a situation that, they couldn't make the payment or whatever, and great, he'd swoop in, and that is exactly what he did, and he did great on it. So good for him. Well, what does this tell you? This tells you that there's a certain vulnerability, a certain fragility to that market. And we've seen Dubai previously have at least 2 cycles, I would say, of overbuilding that have happened. And this has typically resulted in downturn in prices, unsurprisingly, right? Well, what's going on over the last little while is all these realtors are pushing these off-plan units, saying, oh yeah, you should buy them, don't worry, put the money in, you're gonna be able to flip it because before you even have to make the last payment, it's gonna be worth a lot more. So you say, all right, I just put down 10%, maybe in a year I can sell it for 100 grand, 200 grand more, and off I go, and I made this extra money. Wonderful, sounds great, so long as it works. And I think what's fueling that is, if you look at a certain category of buildings, or at least certain categories, I guess, what you will see is that there is not that much competition. So for example, if you want to live in a 5-star hotel residence, which is like a phenomenally great living experience, okay, there's not very many of them. There's maybe like 7, 8 buildings that I would say offer that kind of caliber of lifestyle. Each of these buildings have somewhere between, I would say, 300 to 1,000 units or something like that, which might seem like a lot. You're talking about somewhere in and around the, I don't know, 5 to 10,000 units range. But you can ask, well, hang on, how many people in Dubai actually would like to have that lifestyle? The answer is quite a few. Then how many can afford that? Well, quite a few can afford several $1,000s a month or more, and so they can afford to bid those prices up. And when you have this scarcity of supply, what you've seen is the values of those properties have gone up a lot. So an example of this is the address properties. Okay, address properties have gone way, way up. You can look at address Skyview, you can look at address Downtown, you can look at address Beach Resort, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what this has created is because these prices have gone up a lot, it means that the off-plan market has said, hey, look, we're going to give you this good deal. And I have heard realtors pitching to me. They're like, oh yeah, off-plan is a good deal. The normal properties aren't a good deal, but off-plan is a good deal. Well, hang on a second. Based on today's dynamics, yes. But what are the factors of what's actually coming onto the market? So now let's talk about that, okay? In the last quarter, 84 new projects were launched. It's the highest since 2014, which interestingly was also the height of the market, okay? 84 new projects. How many units? I haven't exactly gone through and done a precise calculation, but let's just assume, around 400. Okay, so we're talking close to 40,000 new units projects, new units kind of began the cycle, were launched in one quarter, okay? In one quarter. Now, that's been accelerating, so true. It's not been quite as many in the previous quarter, but the whole point is it's been accelerating and it may continue to accelerate. I look around and all the time there are new projects being launched. It's insane. For example, I was mentioning, hey, there's 7, 8 properties that are kind of 5-star hotel residences sort of thing. Well, they're looking at adding like 4 to 5 times that many units. Emaar, in Emaar Beachfront, which is a particular area, is adding 10,000 units there alone. Then there's Dubai Creek. Then there is various different other developments. Then there's Damak. Then there's just on and on and on and on. There's a lot of development going on in UAE. Most of it's scheduled for delivery by 2027. A lot of it, okay, Q4 2024 and this 2025 and 26, staged out throughout that time. But we're talking about a lot of new properties, a lot. And there doesn't seem to be any signs of that slowing. Now, that market remains super hot. And so the mindset that I hear from a lot of people is, hey, the market's hot, so it's strong, buy, etc. I can tell you, in my opinion, it is highly likely you see a significant slowdown in the real estate market in Dubai and likely a pullback somewhere in the 2025 to 2027 range. Now, I give you that range realizing that humans are really bad at doing this and we tend to narrow the range too much, so maybe we should expand the range, but this being said, somewhere in that range. And it's pretty simple math, okay? Understand that each year a certain number of people come in. There's, let's call it's going to be 100,000 a year, just for simple numbers. Okay, well, how many units do you need to support 100,000 people a year? Okay, maybe like 30,000, 35,000, something like that. Somewhere around the kind of like what is being delivered right now. And obviously it depends on different categories of buyers and what locations they want to be and things like this, but more or less that. Now, how many units are they adding? The latest information is that they want to add between 500,000 and 1 million new units to Dubai by 2030, okay? This is some of the reports. That basically implies the population is going to double in the next 7 years. This will not happen, okay? It would be totally insane for it to happen. Now, okay, maybe some black swan, you have, I don't know, something happens in China and you have this mass exodus of, millions of people or something like, yes, something like that could happen. But it's a really poor thing to take a bet on. We've kind of seen what happened when lots of people came in from Russia, big swell for sure. And so that could occur. But on the other hand, there's some reasonable chance that between now and 2027, the war in Ukraine ends, and there's going to be a bunch of people who want to go back. They don't want to stay in Dubai. So that's going to have a reverse flow on what's taking place. So in my opinion, I can just sort of look at, is the market likely to experience a major immediate slowdown? No, it's not. I don't think that's likely to happen at all. However, over the next couple of years, the volume of projects that are under construction are going to start to hit the market. And as they start to hit the market, what's going to happen? The competition for those categories of building that are right now desirable and people are willing to bid them up is going to increase. And as that competition increases, it's going to drive the prices down. As the prices get driven down, people aren't going to be in such a need to turn around and flip these things or to buy something at a premium to what it was originally, right? Now all of a sudden what happens? Well, now they're in a situation where the people who bought speculating, hoping that they could flip it for double in 2 or 3 years or something, are going to find that they actually can't find a buyer. And in fact, it might be selling for less than what they'd originally paid for it. And in that situation, suddenly they're forced to come up with a final payment. And they were in a situation where, oh, you know what? Actually, they didn't really plan on the final payment because they were wanting to just flip it. Well, then what happens? Now they're defaulting. Now it's going onto the secondary market. It's coming at a discount. People are picking them up at the discount, so why would they pay the full price? And you get kind of this cascading thing. This will take time. Like, real estate is a slow-moving market, right? It just takes a long time to build buildings. You could go and you could look. I was looking earlier today at the Jacob & Co. Tower. It's supposed to be the tallest residential tower in the world, like 104 floors, 108 floors, something like that. And so they broke down ground a few months ago. It's probably a 3-year construction process. Okay, so like that's a bunch of inventory that will not show up for 3 years. We know it's there. We know they're working on it. Could it be delayed? Yeah, it could be delayed by a year. It could be delayed by, in theory, it could be delayed by a year and a half, 2 years, something like that could happen. But fundamentally, it's fairly predictable what's going to happen with supply looking out sort of 3 years because they've started building it today. And so to me, the amount of new supply that is being announced and added to the market is not comparable to the number of people who are coming in. And that to me strikes it as just not a good time to buy if your purpose of buying is investment. Now, if your purpose of buying is lifestyle, or you're saying, hey, look, I'm doing it for the long term anyway, I want a golden visa, etc. Great, go ahead, make the purchase. Perfectly reasonable. I understand. There's also a time value of having a place right now that you want. All those things count for a lot. But if you're thinking, is this, great, this hot market I should be buying into, this is, going to go to the moon, I would guess that we are fairly close to the top of the market. It could go up, another 6 months. It could, sometime between now and the next 18 months, I would say is probably the top for this market. And then what will happen? Will you have considerable downside? Probably depends on what units. Certain things are going to, remain more desirable. Other things will be less desirable. And so, there will be some spectrum of how the prices move between those assets. But in general, I would expect some downward pressure. I would expect there to be a lot more deals to be available. Now, it's quite a while, right? If you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to wait to buy in 2027. Yeah, this is like a 4-year wait, right? It's not like, a lot of people want to do that. But I hear a lot of hype out there on the Dubai real estate market. And I would suggest to you that when the hype is the greatest is probably the time that you're least wanting to, or you can least expect to get a good deal from a future standpoint. So anyway, tell me what you guys think, put it in the comments below, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.